Hey friend, and welcome to Happily Hormonal. I'm your host, Berry on Berry. Join me as we take a walk on the wild side of understanding our hormones, from puberty to menopause. Yeah, we're about to cover it all. From practical strategies to expert advice and personal experiences, you'll learn how to thrive through each stage of your hormonal life. Whether you're looking to improve your mood, manage those cravings, or just boost your overall vibes, this podcast is designed to help you embrace being happily hormonal. Hello, my love, and welcome back to another episode of the Happily Hormonal Show. It is your happy and hormonal bestie, Berry, and I am so honored to bring you today's conversation with a former client of mine. I don't think I have ever brought a past client on the podcast to share not only their story, but of course, what it was like working with me. But prior to jumping into this episode, I actually want to ask you a question. And the question I have for you is really to stir the pot and to get you thinking about the life you are capable of living. Okay? And the question I have for you is, are you living the life you are capable of living? So during this time of year, if you're listening to this live, it is the holidays. And I think a lot of times we get super excited for, the season of festivities. And a lot of people put a lot of weight on like Christmas, and then they put a lot of weight on New Year's Eve and then New Year's Day. And I know that over the past few weeks, I personally have been in that state of excitement and I wouldn't even say preparation. I have just been in execution season, it feels like. But it also makes me think about you all and how many of you have reached out to me to work with me or to help you with your period or help you get pregnant. And I gotta be honest, there's been a lot of you who have followed through on the conversations we've had and the links I've sent you, but there's also been a lot of you who haven't, who've kind of just disappeared. And whatever the reason is, right? I'm not saying sharing this question to say you have to purchase. I just want to know, are you living the life you are capable of living? So there's a book called The 12-Week Year that I just started reading. And I'm going to be honest with you. I literally have gotten to page 2, but page 1 was so good that I needed to actually just share it with you. Okay, so one of the first people that's quoted is Thomas Edison. And the quote is simple. It says, "If we did the things we are capable of doing, we would literally astound ourselves." And I honestly think that's going to be my quote of the year going into 2024. It's resonating so deeply with me. But just after that quote, the author says he agrees with another author who wrote a book called The War of Art. And that author shared that most of us have two lives: the lives we live and the lives we are capable of living. And I am just so deeply leaning into the life that I am capable of living that I want you to also explore whether or not you are living the life you are capable of living. And honestly, when I ask myself that question, I know for a fact I am not living the life I am capable of living. There's been a lot of areas of my life where I've accepted things or settled or become complacent or said I don't desire that. And I'm not even going to front. That's trash to me, right? I don't want to live like that. I want to live life to its fullest, and I want to live a life that honestly I know I am capable of having and deserving and worthy of. And I want to put the ball in your court. I want to ask you, are you living the life you are capable of living? And if not, what can you do to begin living the life you are capable of living? Okay, to the 500 of you who purchased my cycle support planner, and it was a 90-day habit tracker. I'm going to talk to y'all real quick. Did you follow through on those 90 days? of commitment to your cycle? No? Maybe this is a sign to do so. To those of you who purchase supplements that I recommend, because I know what I'm talking about. Like, ain't no question about it, right? Did you take your supplements consistently every single day? No? Let this be your sign to start. To those of you who had a desire to transform your period or to actually conceive, and you haven't done so yet, let this be your sign to get the right support to actually make those dreams a reality. Okay? Now, with that being said, I am going to share with you, honestly, the most intimate conversation I have had in a very long time with someone I have been able to support on their wellness journey. In just a moment, you're going to hear from my former client, Farrah, who is just honestly such a beautiful person. She's the best energy and the best spirit, but I want to give you a little backstory. In 2020, Farrah reached out to me for quick tips to help her with her period. And y'all know me. I am an open book, especially on Instagram. If you ever slide into my DMs asking for a quick tip, I'm going to do my best to give you said tip. And at the time, she was actually on hormonal birth control, and I told her how to support her body. 6 months later, now we're into 2021, she messaged me again asking for like a little bit of support. And I told her, I actually have a program that would be a pretty good fit for you. And she said to me, you know what? I'm just not ready to make that investment yet. And I said, okay, no problem. June of 2021, she sent me a DM and she was a little frustrated and stressed out because of information that she had received. It was either June or July that she had received from her doctor. And I just held space for her and encouraged her to stay the course. Of course, she asked a question. Of course, I provided her with a quick tip. And then I also said, hey, I know you're on birth control. I know you're looking to get off of it. I actually have a program that's launching in August that I think you would be a really good fit for, especially if you have spent the last few months looking for answers, not getting them, looking for results, not seeing them. Just come into this space. I will support you. And I remember it was the day before my launch finished. I personally just sent her a DM and I was like, Farrah, I don't know where you are on your journey, but what I do know is you've shared with me enough that your desire is to get off birth control, is to regulate your cycle, and is to get pregnant one day. I want to help you. Let's go. Within, I think, 2 hours, she was enrolled in the program. Now, the program she enrolled in was a group coaching program specific to helping people transition off of birth control and not really receive any type of backlash, no post-birth control syndrome or anything like that. And if that's something you're interested in, I do have my birth control course available for you. That group program has since been turned into a course, and it's a phenomenal course. If I do say so myself, I'll leave it linked in the show notes. But I remember it was supposed to be a 4-week program. But the girls literally said, Barry, we need more time with you. And so I extended the 4-week program another 2 weeks just to make sure the loops were closed and everyone felt supported. So within the first 2 weeks, one of the girls had gotten her first period back. Within the next 4 weeks, another one of the girls said, oh my God, I got my period. And then it was Farrah's turn because it was a very small group of women. And then it was Farrah's turn. And, it was pretty much the last day of the program. It was our offboarding call. And she goes, Barry, I haven't got my period yet. And I remember replying to her, that's okay. This is our final day. Give it a little bit. Barry, I have to tell you something. I was like, you got your period. She's like, yeah, how'd you know? I was like, it's the sauce, baby. And we just started laughing, so much joy because she had a history of PCOS. She was also on birth control, getting off of birth control. And I'm going to be honest with you all. As a coach and an educator, sometimes when you are working, in addition to whatever a doctor is doing, sometimes it feels like they're working against each other. Sometimes it feels like you're doing a lot of extra heavy lifting as a coach, right? I don't know what a client is experiencing, but I know as a coach, I was like, good God, like this doctor told her to get on hormonal birth control because they're trying to do this test, and that's just really throwing everything off. And like, I don't know what we doing, but okay. But I still held the space for her to regulate her cycle, right? And now, here she is, several years later, a mother. Now, you might be thinking, Barry, of course she's a mom now. But it wasn't, of course she's a mom now. There was a lot of irregularity with her cycle. There was a lot of highs and lows. There were so many open loops and question marks in which she had to know how to support herself. So even after my program, even though I helped her get her period back, there were still moments where her cycle was irregular because she had PCOS. And there's nothing that she could do, nothing necessarily I could 100% do besides making sure she understood, hey, even if your cycle doesn't show up, like even if your period doesn't show up, there's a chance that you still may be ovulating. And in the event that you're ovulating, you can still conceive. Because a lot of people believe that the only way that you can actually get pregnant is if you have a regular period. And I'm just here to set the record straight. That's actually false. All you have to do in order to get pregnant is actually ovulate. So with that being said, I remember she sent me a DM, I think it was August of 22, and she's like, Barry, I'm pregnant. And I was just so excited and so happy for her. And then in April of 2023, she sent me a picture of her beautiful baby girl. And I literally remember screaming so loud that my poor boyfriend looked at me and was like, you good? I was like, one of my clients finally had her baby girl and I'm so happy. And I have like tears like of joy literally streaming down my eyes, right? I'm so honored to have been a part of her journey. But more importantly, I am so proud of her for staying the course and really, truly living a life that she was capable of living before she even started living it. I grew up hearing, you got to see it before you see it, or you'll never see it. You got to see it before you see it, or you never will see it, right? You have to have faith. You have to believe. You have to trust that everything that you desire will come to pass, will come to life as long as you continue to hold the space for that. And so with Farrah, I'm just so grateful for having been a part of her journey. But as I listen to the episode, I'm just so proud of her for just being like, I just stayed positive. I did what I know how to do. I did what I was taught to do in terms of understanding my body and supporting my body. My daughter is here and I cannot wait to teach her now what I wasn't taught. And like that, for me, that means my work is done. So without further ado, let's hop into today's episode. What is up, Lev? And welcome back to another episode of the Happily Hormonal Show. Listen, friends, it's Barry, but I'm not even going to go through our usual routine because partially scattered right now, but also we have a guest, and this guest is a former client of mine. She's been in group programs with me, and she's just incredible, and I want her to share her story with you all. So, Miss Ma'am, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name is Farrah. I am currently living in Phoenix, Arizona. However, I am also going to be moving beginning of 2024 to Texas. My husband recently accepted a new job that we're very, very excited about. But like Barry mentioned, I took her course in September 2021, I believe it was. And I was just at the point of, I had just gone off birth control in 2020, really trying to figure out, okay, how can I get everything healthy? I eventually want to have babies, but I need to kind of cleanse my system, and I had no idea what to do. My doctors were really just like, hey, you're healthy, blood work's good. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not having a period, so what's going on here? And then that's when I found the lovely Berry on Instagram.
I'm going to walk back a little bit because you're going to have to remind me, but I feel like PCOS was part of the story and the journey in there. And I think that's like something, if someone hears like, oh, I had my period, but I wasn't regular. Like, when were you diagnosed with PCOS, then recovered your period? And like, how was that for you? Because I feel like that is kind of a mind fuck, for lack of better words, because I can't think of a better one.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's a big part of my story too. So I can't even believe I forgot that. But yes, so I was diagnosed with PCOS, I believe either 2016, 2017, I think. And at the time, the doctor was just like, hey, it's nothing to worry about. Do you want kids tomorrow? And I was like, no. At the time, I think I was like 23, maybe 2021. Like I was young. And I was like, no, I don't want kids. Like, I just want to know, like, kind of what's going on here. And so we didn't dive into it. It was just like, that's what it was. And so then I think it was around, so my husband and I, originally we got married in 2019. We were one of those COVID weddings. So pushed off, and it was just like, you know what, let's just not try, I guess. But I was like, okay, but my first order of business is trying to get this period, like trying to figure out, okay, because in my mind, I had to have a period to have a baby. Like that was what I thought. And so it was like, I just want to figure out that. And so PCOS, it was really like, at the beginning, it was like, I didn't know what to do. But I think when I was introduced to your platform, that's when I heard a little bit more about it. And then I was, through your recommendations of following different pages on Instagram, realizing, okay, what is this PCOS? Like, what actually are my symptoms? Because in my head, it was like, I didn't check the boxes of all the PCOS things. Really the main thing that I checked off was abnormal hair growth in places, irregular periods, and then there was one other one, but it wasn't like I checked all these boxes. So I'm like, oh, maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe it's just, this is what it is. And so, yeah, it's definitely, like you said, a mindfuck, for lack of a better word. But it's something I never heard of. My sisters don't have it. My mom doesn't have it. I didn't know anyone at the time that had it. And what's crazy actually, is, 2018, 2019, I met one of my best friends, and, through my husband, my husband worked with both her and her husband. And, we were sitting on the couch one day, and, we're just watching TV, and I said something, she said something about PCOS, and I said, I have PCOS. And she was like, I have PCOS. And I said, no, you don't. And we both were just like, what the heck? And so then we kind of went on this journey of naturally getting, our cycles back and all of this together. I'm telling her supplements that you're recommending me. I'm giving her recommendations for your class. She's telling me things that she's learning from another person that she was working with. And so we're kind of just like tackling this together, and we're just like, hey, this is our life. Let's go ahead and embrace this and just kind of tackle this together. Crazy enough story is she and her husband actually got pregnant the same year in May 2022.
Oh my gosh.
So her and her husband welcomed their little girl February 2022. We welcomed ours they welcomed theirs February 2023. We welcomed ours April 2023. So now we have two little girls that we're just like, and we were talking about it the other day, we're like, I learned something the other day that the probability of my daughter having PCOS, that since I have it, is very high. And I was just like, that just broke my heart. But I was also like, you know what? I can teach her so many things with all the knowledge that I've been learning, that, it's going to be different for her than it was for me, where I was super lost. I was just like, no one talks about it. I knew no one with it. And I was having doctors that really weren't concerned about it either. And so it was just kind of like, what do I do? So that's when I kind of took it into my own hands of just like, you know what? I know and I never wanted to say like there's something wrong with me, because this is how I was made, and this is just, I'm very much a person that just embraces it. But like, what can I do to help me? Who can I reach out to? Who can I work with that's actually going to understand and listen to me, and kind of help me through this and make me not feel as crazy when I'm, going to a doctor and they're saying nothing's wrong, but yet I'm not having a period, which is what I should be having. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that totally answers my question. I'm actually not even gonna lie. I am so happy to hear that you're like, even though I may pass this on to my daughter, I actually have the tools to help her navigate it, because ultimately when I work with people, that's what I want them to walk away with. Not only the tools to help themselves, but like the generations after us, because I feel like the generations prior to, I would say from 1970, basically when hormonal birth control was like just willy-nilly given out like candy, up until arguably 2020, honestly, because that's when the like influx of information about cycles and supporting that window, any woman born between that window of 1970 and 2020 just really wasn't educated about their cycle, their hormones, and different things they should know. And like, it has been my mission literally since I've got my hands on this information to help women heal so they can heal the generations to come. So like, I'm like having a very full circle moment, because the day you sent me the DM and you like showed me your baby, I was like, I am unwell. I am not okay, because, you hear for so long, this is going to be hard, or you won't be able to do this. And I think it's just very discouraging and disheartening. And then you have people like me in your ear, like, no, you could do this. Like, you got to lock in, like, so full force with energy. But, I would love to hear from you. And like, when you think of the journey you've been on, what is the one thing that you think you took away from going through this ebb and flow of life? Like the biggest thing with your personal health journey that you're like, I would share this with my daughter, I would share this with any other woman on that journey. Like, what would you tell her?
I would say just advocating for yourself. There's not enough people that advocate for themselves, and that's how I want to raise my daughter. I'm like, hey, I want you to know your body, and whatever way that looks for you, I support you, but I also want you to just advocate for yourself. If I was sitting there as a young woman who never heard of this PCOS, and I'm like, I don't know what this is. At the time, now I'm a research junkie. I like go and figure out all the things, or go and use my resources. Back then I was like, okay, PCOS, I don't know what that is.
You would show up to calls like full on student mode, like glasses, messy bun, notebook, let's go. And I was just like, you are my people. So I love that.
And it's funny because I remember I was actually talking with one of my sisters, and I have 3 sisters, so I've talked to each of them about, all this stuff. But my youngest sister, she was talking about her period and how it's so painful. It's how she like can't concentrate some days and all these things. And I remember saying, your period is not supposed to be like that. And she was like, what do you mean? And I said, your period shouldn't be painful. And I remember, and even still, I've had 2 periods since being postpartum. The things that I've still put in my body from learning from your class, and just really just making sure and there are days that I have my ice cream and, all the things. I don't deprive myself of anything, but 9 times out of 10, I'm eating pretty much healthy. But I have yet to, since implementing the things that you have educated me on, I have yet to have a painful period. And that's exactly what I remember.
But also postpartum. So like put that,
yes.
I want to put that out there too, because I think the postpartum body is so, that is like something I can't, I have questions, but finish your thought. I have so many questions for you.
But again, just advocating for yourself and realizing like, you know, if this feels wrong, like what can I do about it? I go to a chiropractor and he made a comment. He was like, you know, if anything is wrong with your body. And I said, I just try and be so in tune with it and just being an advocate for myself, because no one else can be an advocate for your body other than you. And so, it's funny though, because even though I am so in tune, I had no idea I was pregnant.
Yeah. Well, I think so let me ask you about that, because I know that was a very interesting journey. I don't want to call it a hard journey. I want to call it an interesting one, because there was like a lot of stuff that was being thrown at you. What was the moment like? How did you feel when you found out you were pregnant? Like, what was that like for you?
That there's only 48 hours in a month that you can get pregnant, correct?
Incorrect. 6 days. Okay, 6 days. Remember, we've got 5 days before you ovulate, and then the day you ovulate. Ovulation happens 24 to 36 hours.
Okay, but that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a short window of that ovulation time. And so I remember just telling myself, like, it's okay if I don't get pregnant this month, because there's a short window. And in my head, you hear about all these stories of like, oh, it took me like 2 years to get pregnant. And I'm like, okay, but if there's only that short window, that's really not that long of a time to be on this journey of getting pregnant. I just tried to remind myself of that, of one, not stressing about like, hey, I need to get pregnant. We need to have sex at this time. I really was just like, I don't want that. I don't want that in my soul. I don't want that in my body. Like, I just want to have fun and just realize, hey, if I'm going to get pregnant, it is because God wants me to have a baby. And so when I did find out that I was pregnant, I was like, what? And it's so funny because I had like the little Amazon strips, like not the digital, like I just had the strips. And I've taken numerous amounts of pregnancy tests, because again, I had those irregular periods, and it wasn't it wasn't always thinking I was pregnant, but it was just making sure I wasn't pregnant, if I was going to be drinking or whatever it may be. And so I had those on hand, and, I took the test, and I was by myself. My husband was on his way home from work. And I took the test, and I was like, wait a second. And there's one control line on those tests, and then obviously the second line pops up and you're pregnant. But I was like, wait a second, there's 2 lines. What's going on here? Like, I was so like shocked and so confused as to why there was 2 lines, because there's no way that I was pregnant. You know what I mean? Especially because, so I took a test end of July. I took this positive test on August 19th, 2022. And I was technically pregnant in July, but it didn't show up on the test.
Wow.
And it wasn't until that August 19th that it was like, boom, you're pregnant. And I had my OB appointment on the 31st of August, and I was already 8 weeks pregnant. I was almost 9 weeks pregnant. So I was pregnant in July. It just wasn't showing up. But when I saw that test, I was like, whoa, like I couldn't even believe it. I was shaking. I was so excited overall. And then I couldn't wait to tell my husband. I was like, this is going to be crazy. And even him, he was like, how, what? Like, he's freaking out. We're freaking out. I'm crying. He's just hugging me, all the good things. But it was definitely just like, wow, like, power in manifestation, power in prayer. Funny enough, April 22, I told my husband, I said, our baby's coming next year. I don't know when. I don't know if that means I'm going to conceive in 2023 or we're going to have a baby in 2023. I'm like, but our baby's coming. And then April 2023 is when we had her.
You know, what's so wild is hearing your belief in yourself, in your body, in staying the course. I think that that's one of the key things that people miss on their wellness journeys, or belief in yourself, in your body. That trust is just so admirable. Do you think at all it was hard to build that trust after getting information that was kind of conflicting?
Yeah, definitely. Because, society puts it one way of like, and my family is Mexican. So Mexicans in general, it's like you get pregnant, like that's what you do. And so when I wasn't getting pregnant and then I had this, PCOS, I'm like, well, what the heck? But society, I think, puts so much pressure on women to have babies, to, be this wife and be a certain way. And it's like, it is hard. It's totally hard to keep that belief. But I think for me, I was just like, there's no way. And I'm sure a ton of my close friends could tell you that, I believed so much that my husband and I were such good people and good aunts and uncles to our numerous amounts of nieces and nephews, that there was no way. I just could not believe that there was no way that God was not going to make us parents. Like I just had to have that in my head, and then just fully, really trust. Like, hey, if this is going to happen, it's going to happen exactly when it's supposed to. I was talking to my mentor recently about our upcoming move, and it's those things that. When you just know it's God, when it's like everything is so smoothly but fast at the same time. And she's like, that is because God has already been planning this, but God just said, nope, now it's time for Farrah to move right into it. Like she's ready. And so I think that that's what it was I was just going with the flow. I was meditating. I was taking care of myself. I was making sure my husband was taking his vitamins. I was making sure we were eating healthy, really just embracing traveling, getting married, all the things, being spontaneous, which I'm not a very spontaneous person. I try, but, I'm very type A in some things. And so really, I just think it was that where I stopped thinking about getting pregnant for a little bit. And that's when it happened. And it was just like, okay. But yeah, it was definitely hard. There were definitely, some days that it was really hard. And being like, am I ever going to get pregnant? Am I ever going to do this? But then really just like kind of telling myself to check back in and be like, hey, no, let's journal about this. Let's pray about this. If you believe this is going to happen, it's going to. And I was reading this book, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head because it was an audiobook when I was pregnant, but it was talking about, if you have the faith, just trust it and just believe that it's going to happen. And in this book, they were talking about how the person didn't find out what they were having, boy or girl. And she was like, I just believe it's a girl. And everyone asked her, like, why are you so strong about believing it's a girl? And she's like, because I know that God knows my heart's desires, and that is what I desire. And at the end of this pregnancy, when I do figure out what this baby is, if it's a girl, my faith was answered. Like that was my faith. And so, yeah, to answer your question, and I'm kind of rambling, but yes,
no, keep
it was
going.
hard.
It's good.
It was hard, but it's just, I think it gets hard for us women just because of society. And sometimes it's really hard to put put that tunnel vision on and just kind of ignore society. And even the society of just like, oh, just go to your OB. And it's like, no, what if I go to a midwife? Or what if I go to someone like you who's educational enough that maybe could help me, trying to kind of go outside the norm. Because even I remember telling my family, my sisters and my mom specifically about, your class and just what I've learned and things that I was doing. And they were just like, they had no idea. Like, they had no idea the things that were potentially affecting their hormones and just certain things like that. So, yeah.
I need to meet this mentor of yours, because when I tell you, this isn't about periods right now. It's the faith. It's the belief. Yeah. I think a lot of times when you get, news you don't want to hear, something like that, we forget that, we can tell God our desires of our hearts and pray for it, but we also still have to exercise that faith. And never once, I always have to remind myself of this, never once does God say it's going to be easy. And sometimes I'm like, you sure? You sure about that? You sure? Because right? But yeah, for every low that you experience, it's there's going to be a higher high. And just hearing you say, my mentor said, it's God when things align and it moves rapidly. And I'm like, that is so true. And to hear you say, but still keeping the faith. I think that's the missing piece for so many people, is the ability to continue taking the right actions and keeping the faith. And, listen, y'all, I'm not trying to say that it's all worth it. But what I'm saying is, she wanted a period. I helped her get her period. She wanted a baby. She got her baby. Okay, so that's all I'm saying. I did my work, which was helping you get your period. But then from there, I can even recall moments where you were kind of like, hey, this is what my doctor said. What are your thoughts? And I would just be like, oh, I don't want to go against your doctor, but the math isn't mathing, and it's not checking out. Something about this doesn't check out, and it's just so great to know that you stayed encouraged and you stayed the course. And honestly, I don't have any more questions for you or anything like that. I'm just so happy I got to check in with you, see how you're doing, and really hear your story. Is there anything else you want to leave the girly pops with today?
Just listen to whatever Barry says, really. That's
the episode. Moral of the story.
But it's hard because it's just you're right. The math was not mathing with a lot of things. I remember one of the things being my levels of progesterone. And you telling me one thing and then them being like, no, everything's fine. And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I have low progesterone. And just realizing, I think one of the things I remember you telling me was, when your first day of your period is more the brownish color, very light, that is due to, the blood didn't leave correctly the last time. And I'm being like, okay, that's what's happening. But my doctor's telling me that I don't have low progesterone. And I'm like, no, I'm going to listen to Barry on this one. I'm like, what can we do about this?
And I think, a lot of times we think that doctors know about the menstrual cycle. And some OBGYNs are great with the cycle. Some are not. One of my best friends from high school, he actually went to Harvard Medical School. He is a doctor, a Harvard doctor now at that, right? So it's very prestigious. He has literally said, Barry, I have learned more about menstrual cycles and fertility from following your Instagram than I ever learned in med school. And that's alarming to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, bro, you're a Harvard doctor. You don't get to shortcut it. You have to know, right? And so it's just it's not to say that doctors don't know what they're talking about, but it is to say, trust your body. If your doctor tells you your labs are normal, but something is off, such as you have an irregular cycle, you have brain fog, you have missing period, whatever it is, the math is literally not math.
I think like we said a few times, if the math is not mathing, just advocate for yourself.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, be sure to let me know over on Instagram, because you know I love knowing what it is you are enjoying from me. And before I let you go, I want to extend a very special invitation to any of you who have it on your heart to finally conceive. I finally created an 8-week preconception program for those of you ready to step into your mother energy. And baby, let me tell you, I have never been more excited to introduce something to you all, but especially birth it into the world. I created this 8-week experience to really help you all prep your body, mind, and relationships for conception. So often what I've noticed is that people take the science a little bit too far and forget about the element of sensuality. And that is such an important aspect of conceiving. So if you or someone you know is on this journey to conceive, then I highly recommend that you check out my program, BRB Conceiving, because I am so excited to support you, and as always, love you, mean it.